Did you know that you can get this same great episode of the Rural Woman podcast ad-free? I get it. Listening to ads during a podcast isn't always my favorite either. But in order to keep the lights and coffee pot on here at the Rural Woman Podcast Studios, they are necessary. I am so grateful to each and every one of my sponsors, but if you yourself would like to skip the ads while supporting the show, consider joining me over on Patreon. Patrons of the Rural Woman podcast get ad-free episodes starting at Tier 5 on their podcast player of choice each week, plus some other great benefits. Find out more by heading to the link in today's show notes to learn how you can become a patron through Patreon. Hi, I'm Caitlin Dubin, and this is the Rural Woman podcast. I'm a first-generation farmer who married into agriculture. Born and raised in a city, I was so unfamiliar with where my food came from, but I was determined to figure it out. Through my journey into agriculture, I saw women who were strong but humble, often taking a back seat. To me, these women were leaders who deserved a seat at the table. I created the Rural Woman podcast to share the voices of women in an industry whose stories often went untold. The rural entrepreneurs who live and breathe their work, full of grit and pride. We come here to share our stories, to be in community with each other, to be challenged and inspired, but most importantly, to be celebrated and to be heard. We may not all live, farm, ranch, or homestead the same, but we are all connected. We are rural women, and our stories are worthy of being told. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Rural Woman podcast. Today you'll meet Hilary Blanchette. Hilary is a third-generation rancher and the owner and operator of Holsom Equine Rehabilitation and Conditioning. As the youngest of three with two older brothers on the family place, taking over the ranch was unlikely. So she wrote a plan, took it to the bank, and turned a long-held dream into a thriving equine rehab and conditioning center. Hilary shares how she transformed passion into a business, what it took to craft a plan that lenders could back, and how she built a facility that serves horses and people who love them. We get into the tools she uses, from a water treadmill to cold saltwater spa to a solarium and an Equivibe, how she partners with veterinarians, and the tough cases that became success stories. We also talk about family, community support, and what it means to keep a business small so every horse leaves feeling like family. Without further ado, my friends, let's get to this week's episode with Hilary. Hilary, welcome to the Rural Woman podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I am so excited to meet you and to dive into your story and learn more about you. So for the folks who are listening who are unfamiliar with you, tell us who you are, where you're from, and how you are connected to agriculture.
Yeah, so my name's Hilary Blanchette. I'm born and raised just outside Medicine Hat, Alberta, straight south of Suffield, which is the military base. Grew up on a family ranch with my parents and my two older brothers. And yeah, kind of born and raised on the ranch. Had a pretty good idea of the day-to-day operations of it. I helped my dad lots with it. Yeah, and I just really like the agricultural lifestyle.
Very cool. Tell us more about the family ranch that you grew up on. You said you were third generation there. So do you know the history of your family on the ranch before you came around?
Yeah, so it was actually my dad, his stepdad owned it. We live right on the river. So we have about, I don't even know, probably 30 miles of river flat in the coulees, which is really cool. So my grandpa Alec McDougald had it prior to us, and my dad helped work on that. And then when my grandpa and grandma decided to retire, they moved into town and my dad took it over. And so now my dad is semi-retired, and so both my brothers work full-time and live on the ranch with their families as well. So we're kind of leaning to that now. We're out there a lot helping. We don't live directly on the ranch because we need city water in order to run our equine equipment. So you can't really do that off of a well. So we live off of the ranch, but are there quite a bit helping with the day-to-day operations.
Very cool. Growing up on the ranch, was it always something that you envisioned for yourself to be a part of the ranch itself or agriculture growing up? Or was this something that was in the back of your mind that you could go back to, but had different ideas for what you wanted to do when you grew up?
No, I definitely wanted to be part of the ranch. It's tough though. Many ranches struggle to have one person that wants to take them over. And in our family, we had three of us that wanted to take it over. So in the end, I've got two older brothers, so they both work on it. And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to be on there full time with my family as well. The ranch isn't quite big enough to support three full families. It does still support my parents are there. So there is a possibility once maybe my parents moved off, we have three houses on the ranch that we could possibly eventually move back there. But with my dad still wanting to have a part in the day-to-day operations, there's just not enough space for all of us. My husband is a power engineer, so he works full-time shift work. So he's not even at the point that he would want to work full-time on the ranch. It would strictly be for me. And I quite like not living on the ranch. It's kind of nice to have some distance between my brothers and I, because as you probably know, family, it can be quite hard to run a business with everybody in one spot. So it's kind of nice to have some distance there and still get to go back and help whenever we can.
Yeah, for sure. I always say that, working in a family farming or ranching operation is such a blessing and a curse. The blessing that you get to work and be with your family, and the curse also being you're with your family and you're working with them all of the time. So sometimes having that separation is a good thing.
Yeah.
What do you think some of the key lessons you learned growing up are lessons that you brought forward to your business and your career of what you're doing today?
Yeah, so on the ranch, same thing, kind of animal husbandry. You had to look after the animals first, and they ate before you did. So I kind of learned that work ethic. My dad missed a lot of family functions just because he knew that chores came first. So for me to open my own business, I kind of knew that I was probably going to be working more as a business owner than I was if I worked off of a place for somebody else. So I knew that the hard work it took to pull that off. And I also knew the amount of work it took to run a family business and keep your family afloat too, and put your family first. Because in the end, I've got two little girls. They're going to be 8 and 10 this summer. So trying to raise a family and run a business in itself is a lot of work. And my mom did that as well. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and looked after all the accounting for our ranch. So I knew the amount of work it took to make it afloat and keep it going for many generations, hopefully.
Absolutely. Yeah. And wearing so many different hats and being so many different roles is a lot to handle. And I guess growing up in that situation, you get to see that. And probably as you get a bit older, have a lot more respect for what it actually takes to do all of these different tasks to run a business. And like you said, to have a family as part of that business. So where did your love of horses begin? Do you remember?
Definitely with my dad. So we used horses a lot on the ranch. My dad wasn't a huge believer in using quads or vehicles. He thought everything moved a lot quieter and was a lot more respectful when you took your time with them. And so we grew up using horses to move cattle and check things. So I kind of fell in love with them then. I would say I started barrel racing. I was probably 7 or 8. At the Ralston Rodeo was the first rodeo I ever entered, and I kind of fell in love with it there. I was in 4-H for a long time. I did lots of gymkhanas. So my parents kind of instilled in me that horses were going to be definitely part of my life. There was quite often when I was little that I would get, so you came down the hill into our ranch, and there's probably, oh God, 6 miles between the bottom of the hill and where our house is. And in between that was where my horse's field was. So I used to take my halter on the school bus with me in my backpack and get the bus driver to drop me off at the bottom of the hill. And then I would walk out in the field and catch my horse and hop on bareback. And then I would ride him home to saddle him so that I could go ride. So from a very young age, I was definitely set on making that happen.
Very cool. Talk to us more about your barrel racing. When did you start barrel racing?
Yeah, so that Ralston Rodeo, I was probably 6, 7. Was the first time I ever started. I had just an old ranch horse. His name was Newt, and he was probably 25 years old when I started riding him. So I decided I wanted to enter my first rodeo on Newt. And so my parents didn't really know what that entailed, what that meant. And at that point, they actually didn't have Pee-wee or junior barrels. So I entered the open barrel race with everybody else. And I knew I wasn't going to win, but I just wanted to go out there and have fun. So that's probably where it sparked. And then it just kept going.
Kept going. Do you still barrel race today?
Yes and no. So with the business, it's been really hard to find time to ride as much as I should. So I actually have a 6-year-old. I got her as a 3-year-old, and I'd been training on her. And my goal was to futurity her last year. And I just didn't have time with the business. It's kind of taken my priority. So I actually just started getting back on her in February here, and I'm getting her in shape, and I'm going to take her to some things, and then I'll probably sell her. My daughter, Kate, is jumping. So that has kind of changed my life now. I'm kind of at jumping shows every chance I get. So it's really hard to go with her to those and get myself to barrel races. So I'm kind of going to the English world, I guess, for a little while here.
Very cool. So take us through how you decided that your love of horses was going to turn into a full-time business for you.
My horse, Lucius, I was probably 16, and he decided he could jump a cattle guard, and he didn't make it all the way. So he stuck both his front legs through the cattle guard, and he actually broke both front legs and had some pretty good wounds. So at that point, it was probably June, and I knew I wanted to get to the ABRA finals in August. And so we took him up to a rehab center, Champion Equine it was at the time, and we took him there, and they rehabbed him back, and I ended up running at ABRA finals the fastest time I'd ever ran on him. So that's where I knew how much I appreciated it when I needed it. So at that point in time, I had kind of said that's what I had wanted to do. So when I turned 18 and I decided that's what I want to do, it's really hard to go to a bank at 18 years old and ask for $1 million to start a business. They kind of laugh at you. So I ended up doing some other things in the meantime and kind of put it on hold until my husband and I actually bought an acreage and bought a piece of land. And then once we had that, then it was like this dream came back alive of, okay, I can do this. Like, we have the land now. I wouldn't need as much money. Let's make this a go and let's try it. COVID kind of burnt me out. I worked full time at the hospital through COVID. So once COVID was kind of ending, I knew like I couldn't stay in the hospital. It was just tearing me apart. So I ended up kind of going to the bank with a business plan and saying, like, this is what I want to do. My mom thought I was crazy. My dad thought I was crazy. They're like, why would you start this business and put all your like work into this when you can literally go to work, do your work and come home and just like leave it in the background? And I said, I'm not happy. Like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So they really tried to deter me. At that point, we didn't know what COVID was going to be. We didn't know if the world was going to shut down at that point. It was kind of like, oh gosh. But I had my business plan. I worked on my business plan all through the end of COVID. And then in July 2020 was when I finally announced, like, hey, I'm doing this. And nobody quite supported me, I guess. They kind of thought I was crazy. But I did it, so.
Right. Well, and you obviously have been thinking of this for a long time, and having such a good experience, having a horse go through such a big transformation, and to see how much it meant to you and how much it meant to the horse to be able to be rehabbed, right? So you had that personal experience. So of course, this is something that you're passionate about. I'm curious, with the building of the business plan, where did you get the idea to write this business plan? Did you get any help along the way to write this business plan, or was this something that was just in your head and you put it on a piece of paper?
I just put it on a piece of paper. I didn't even know where to start because, like, when I kind of talked to my aunt as a commercial banker, and I talked to my aunt and I said, like, hey, what do I need? Like, what do these people want to see at the bank?
Right.
And she's like, well, the problem is your business isn't something like a liquor store where you can go in and the bank's going to be like, oh, I know what a liquor store is. So when I went in and I said, I want to start an equine rehab center, the banker was like, what is that? Like, I had to explain to them what I was even hoping to create before I could even they could give me advice. Nobody knew how to give me advice because there's like 2 of us in Western Canada that do this. So it's not something that's everywhere. So I really struggled with that, trying to get support and help to even know where to start, because there isn't really, it's just not your typical business. So that took a lot. So I kind of knew I had got a quote for my building. So I knew what my building was going to cost. I knew what all my equipment was going to cost. And actually, my mom said to me, why don't you cut it back? Why don't you start smaller? Why don't you just do the building and just the treadmill, and don't do the solarium and the Equivibe and the cold saltwater spa? And I said to her, Mom, if I don't have all the pieces, I'm not going to be able to attract the stuff that I need to attract to make this a go. So I said, I have to go big, or I have to do it not at all. My mom, she likes to play it safe. She does not do well with risks. So she's like, don't do it. I was like, I'll be fine. I'm going to be okay. So when I actually did my business plan, I made it so that it would be able to be sustainable if I only had 2 horses a month. I needed 2 horses a month to pay for this business to keep me going. And that was my goal. And originally when I started this business, 6 horses was going to be my max. Like, I was going to be full if I had 6 horses. And I quickly learned that there was a lot more people that needed me than 6. So that made it really difficult, because my goal, even when I did my business plan, when I went into the bank, I said, I don't want this to be a big thing. I don't want this to be a massive commercial operation. I want these people to come in and feel like it's a one-on-one service. I want them to know that I'm the one looking after their horse and I'm the one doing all the care, so they can trust me. Trust that your horse is being treated to the best of its ability. And so that's what I always wanted. And I didn't want to get bigger so that I couldn't do those things.
Right. To make it more of a personal experience for the customer and for the horse.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I will say everybody that has come to us has said. Like, I love that it's like you I call to book with, and it's you that I see when I bring my horse. And I love that I can text you at any time and I know what's going on. So I think that's what sets us apart from other people. And that's what makes our clients appreciate us.
So you brought the business plan to a bank. Mm-hmm. Was it the first bank that approved you, or did you have to do this a few times in order to get the funding that you needed?
So yeah, I went to a couple different banks. The first bank kind of laughed at me. And the other problem is when you go into a bank, I'm an agricultural business, but generally ag banking, they won't look at you if you need less than $1 million. So I was kind of in this in between of, I'm an ag business, but I don't need the amount of money that an ag business generally needs. But I'm a small business, but small business doesn't understand that I'm also an ag business. So that aspect of it was really tricky with banks to understand even where to put me. They didn't quite understand where I would fall. But at the end, after I had these banks knowing exactly what I was doing and what I was hoping to accomplish, I actually had 2 banks fighting, trying to figure out, they both wanted my business under their portfolio. So that was kind of cool. Then it made me feel good, because I was like, okay, now you see what I see in this and you have the faith that I can do it. So that was cool.
Yeah. And must make you feel pretty darn good about that business plan that you work so hard on.
Yes. Because they kind of, at first, they're like, are you sure? Like, it shows you're making a lot more money than you're spending. Are you sure this is have you thought about all this? And I was like, yes, I've thought about it all. Like, I've gone over this with my dad. I've picked my mom's brain. I was like, I can do it. So that was really cool.
Very cool. So take us back to 2020 and getting started. Where did you start?
Yeah. So once I got the bank approval, then I announced it. I created a Facebook page in July 2020 telling everybody what I was planning to do. And I kind of got people excited about it. And then I had ordered my equipment at that point, and it was just a waiting game. The hole went in the ground in November 2020. The hole went in the ground. They started building the barn. And at that point, I had said I wanted to be open December 15th. And everybody kind of was like, that's like 6 weeks. You're not getting this done. And I was like, they told me the barn's going to be up in 4 days, and I'm going to have this barn up in 4 days. So that was kind of cool. I oversaw a lot of it. We didn't have a contractor, so we had one person came in and built the barn. We had a friend of ours come in and do all the groundwork for the plumbing stuff, and we had another friend come in and do electrical. So we were kind of in charge of it every step of the way. So then actually the barn and everything was ready to go in December, and we opened in January 2021 with vets coming in, and they started coming in using the building. So Medicine Hat doesn't really have any local performance vets. So I knew also when I started this business that I wanted to bring in outside services and kind of have it like a meeting space for everybody to come and collaborate on to give the best care for the horses. So that's what we started doing. So then we had Corvette and Energy Equine come and work out of our barn. And then we had Southern Sage Osteopathy coming, and we had Thunderbird Osteopathy coming. So it was kind of a meeting space to get everybody. So all those services started coming in January 2021. And then by March 2021, we had our cold saltwater spa in. And then by April, we had our treadmill in. And in May, we were a full service facility. So that was pretty cool.
That is so cool. And you got it done. You said you were going to get it done, and you got it done.
Yeah, there was a lot of people surprised because they said, oh, like construction never goes as you plan. Like there's always setbacks. And I was like, no, there's not going to be setbacks. This is going to work.
That is incredible. So tell me about the community reaction. And you said all of these different services were able to come to your facility and use it for their own businesses as well. What has been the reaction of your local community?
It's been fantastic. Everybody said like this was a long time coming. Like the Medicine Hat area really needed it. We attract like Saskatchewan because Southern Saskatchewan doesn't have a whole lot either. So we're kind of in a good corridor between the number 1 highway and the number 3 highway. So we get clients come, like we have clients right now as far as Estevan coming to see us, and we draw clients all the way from BC. So we've kind of brought the whole community together as like a meeting spot halfway between, and everybody has really enjoyed it and it's worked well for them. And it's cool that we can offer it to the city of Medicine Hat too, because there's not a whole lot. We've had a lot of accidents happen with horses lately where horses couldn't get to the services they need in time. So it's kind of cool that we can offer that in the area.
Yeah, very cool. So walk us through all of the different equipment you have and what you're able to use it for.
Yeah, so we have our water treadmill. We have an Aqua Icelander water treadmill that came all the way from Iceland in the middle of COVID. That was the other thing, I guess. So all of our equipment came because in 2021, COVID was still happening. They couldn't get in the country to install our treadmill. So we installed our treadmill ourselves through FaceTime.
Wow.
Because we didn't want to wait any longer. We were too impatient. So we FaceTimed Bjarne in Iceland and Jake down in Kentucky. And they taught us how to install our treadmill and get it all up and running. So that added a whole nother piece of stuff for us. So yeah, so they got us all up and running. And then, so our water treadmill, we can vary water heights right from 1 inch of water all the way up to shoulder height of water. So depending what we're trying to work, I always say if we do knee height water, we're doing a crunch. So if you're doing sit-ups for 10 minutes, that's what the horse is doing. So we're working their top line and their core and their hocks and their stifles. And we use that water height quite often, just as a full body workout. And with that, they're also doing the push-pull movement with their front end. And then we'll vary our water height. So we could do skimming water, which is a lower water height. And that we can work on lengthening stride of horses. And if we want to take the weight off and just get full range of motion on a joint, then we'll go higher up to that shoulder height of water where we're maxing our resistance, but we're also taking the weight off those joints. So we can do all that. And then we can do a 5 or 10 degree incline as well on our treadmill, which is really cool. So lots of people don't have access to coulees or hills to do that side of a workout. So we can do that right here in our treadmill. And then we have a river feature as well. So we could turn that on and it's like they're swimming up a river the whole time. Lots of them really like that. We'll turn them on, put them on backwards, and that allows us to work their top line, their hocks, and their stifles a bit more. So yeah, the treadmill is really cool. We've got lots of different options we could do with that. And we use it for conditioning or rehabilitation, just depending what we're working. And then we have our cold saltwater spa, which is like an ice bath. So we chill the water to 2 degrees, and then it's got 250 pounds of Epsom salts. So if you ever thought about how sore you get and when you have an Epsom salt bath, so we have that virtually for horses. So we use that for wound control. If we have a wound we're trying to heal, or if we have tendon and ligament damage, then we'll use that to try and tighten all the tendons and ligaments, either proactive or post-injury. And then we have our Solarium and Equivibe. So our Equivibe is the vibrating platform. We really like that. It's hard to even explain how it works. They say it mimics gravity. So it actually makes them feel taller and more stretched out. I actually bulged 5 discs in my back a couple years ago, and that's where I stood. I lived on the Equivibe just so that I could function. So I'm a true believer in the Equivibe now. And then the Solarium is the red light therapy. So that goes over top of them and just helps with the lactic acid buildup, which is what makes you sore, and penetrates deep into the muscles. So that's a great service we offer too. Those would be our main services. And then we do like our core balance stretches. So we get lots of kissing spine surgeries that are here for rehab. So we use our balance pads and then our stretches for those ones just to help. Lots of horses that have had kissing spine surgery, they've generally had the nerves in their back cut or the muscle cut. And so we kind of use that for proprioception. So they struggle to have those nerve endings to tell them where their feet are. So we kind of regain some of that through the balance pads.
This sounds like the best spa ever for, I'm quite jealous of these horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. And like so cool that there's all of these like different things that you're able to do to help them and to make them feel better, but also for training to make them a stronger athlete themselves. What have been some of the toughest cases in the last number of years that you've had to oversee, and what have been some of the outcomes?
Yeah, so we've dealt with lots of wounds. We just actually had a wound go home maybe a week ago and cut quite deep on the leg, broke actually 2 legs doing it, got his front leg caught on a hinge of a gate on the top. And so it was cut right down to the bone and the tendon was actually severed. So we helped with dressing changes on that one. It stayed inside in our barn for 6 weeks. That one was really cool because they didn't know if the horse would ever be sound again. And it left sound. So that's pretty cool to see. We'll see if it makes a performance career come back. They weren't sure if it would or not. So that's kind of a wait and see game. We had another one last year as well that also cut a hind leg and actually blew the joint apart. So the entire joint capsule, you were able to see inside of it. And that one also they recommended putting down, and it stayed with us for a long time for rehab. And they're back riding it again. It's sound. So we've had some pretty cool cases that we've got to be a part of.
That is very cool. On average, how long is a horse typically at your facility, or is it very different for each animal?
It just varies very differently. So it just depends. The rehab cases are usually there at least 2 months. It's kind of what we have one kissing spine surgery that's been with us since January, and it'll go home here probably beginning of May. It also depends on budget, what people want to kind of, at what level they want to take them home. We have some people that want to take them home when they can hop right back on and be back to the way they were before. And then we have some that want like that kind of 2-month window, get the horse set up, and they're willing to take them home at that point and keep building on that. So it kind of depends on the client as well. But I would say most of them are 2 months if they're a rehab case. If they're just getting conditioned, we have some horses that just come for 4 days. Like they'll come Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday and swim for 5 days, and then they take them home. And it's just kind of a change in their workout. And it's kind of that brain break for these horses too. So right now we're in spring conditioning season. So lots of those are here for a month, and they'll come for a month, get conditioned, and then head down the rodeo road.
Yeah, very cool. Get conditioned after a long winter of treats and,
Yes.
maybe not working as hard.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny too, because when I started this business, my dad was a skeptic and he was like, there's nobody going to spend money like this on horses. Like, why would people do this? And it's funny because lots of his friends come and swim their horses. And we get actually quite a few farmers and ranchers because they're generally busy in the spring with calving, or they're busy in the fields trying to get their seeding in. So they'll send us their horse so that when they're done seeding, their horse is ready to go do whatever they need to do, or getting ready for branding season. So that's been a kind of cool thing to see these people do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a different way of thinking of how people value their time, right? Like you said, if you're busy trying for calving, or you're busy trying to get in the field to get your seeding done, instead of taking that time to get your horse ready for when you need it in the spring and summer, you have people with the technology and the time and the resources and the expertise to get that horse ready for you. So what a great use of time and resources.
Yes, absolutely.
You can help support the stories of women in agriculture to be shared through the Rural Woman podcast on Patreon. What is Patreon? It's a membership-based platform that helps fund and support creators like me to create and produce content like this that you all love. New to the Rural Woman podcast Patreon is ad-free listening and patron-only bonus content and exclusive episodes. Learn more and join the patron gang today at patreon.com/The Rural Woman Podcast. Do you have any funny stories that you can share with us from any of your horse patients that have come in that maybe caused a little bit of grief for you?
We have a lot of really fantastic horses, actually. The one thing I've done this whole time is I refuse to use sedatives. So I've always said if I can't get them to do it on their own, they won't do it. So I just always take my time and my patience with them. We had one horse that was super difficult. The owner brought the horse. They have 2 other horses. They brought 3 horses to us. And this horse would not go on the treadmill, would stand at the back of the treadmill, dig her heels in, and would not step forward. The owner tried, we tried. We're like, okay, this horse is never doing this. We're done. And then it was the next year, she's like, we're going to try again. And I was like, are we sure? She won't go in. She just won't do it. She's like, we're going to keep trying. I'm like, okay. So we tried to do it again last year. She just actually came a month ago, and she just walked right in. No fight, no care in the world, just strolled right through the treadmill. And me and my girlfriend were like, what just happened? What is this? And who is this horse? Because we were both not looking forward to the horse coming. We were like, oh, this is going to be a mess. Why are we doing this? And the horse just all of a sudden was like, okay, I'm okay with this.
I'm ready. I wonder if it just took them seeing other horses or being there a few times to understand what was happening, because I'm sure it's a little intimidating walking into a glass box or whatever it is, right? I don't have a horse, but I do have a very stubborn Bernese mountain dog. If he doesn't want to do something, he will sit down and he's not moving until he's ready to move. So
yeah. And that was totally what this was. And I usually do that. I always tell owners when the horse comes, I tie the horse up to our wash rack area. And I said, I'll let them watch a couple horses do it so they kind of know what it entails. And then usually after they've watched a couple, they're fine. And it's funny because that's generally the first time they'll snort watching the other horse do it. And by the third time that you actually physically walk them in, they're totally okay with it. They're open to it.
Right. Well, it's probably fun for them, right? And, a challenge for them. And depending on what they're doing, it feels good for them and hurts their achy bones or whatever ailment they have, right?
Well, and I always say, who doesn't like swimming?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and for me, who doesn't like to go to the spa? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you had mentioned originally when you were with your business plan, you were counting on at least 2 horses a month. Have you been able to grow since then? Has 2 horses always just been the minimum? You've always had more? What has been the reaction?
I've always had more. And so when I get into my busy season, I'm sitting at about 12 horses that I'm working a day. So from January to end of May, I'm working about 12 horses a day. So that has been cool because I doubled, 6 was my max. So to double that to 12 it's been fantastic. And I still have clients that are like, when are you expanding? We need more space. I couldn't get my horse in. So that's really cool to hear just how happy people are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as somebody yourself who not only had a horse who suffered an accident, who needed the rehab, but you've also been in the rodeo scene yourself. So you understand what this rehab can do for horses. Obviously, you have the need to expand. Is this something that you've considered, or is this still something that you're thinking, I'm going to keep it small?
I still want to keep it small. I think that's when I've talked to clients about expanding, everybody has said what they love is that I'm there. I'm able to do everything. I do all my own bookkeeping. I do all my accounting. I do all my own bookings. I handle every aspect of the business. When they call the phone number, like it's my cell phone, I don't have a business number, so they can get a hold of me 24 hours a day if they need. So I like that I can still look after all the horses and keep on all those things so that they don't have to speak to somebody else when they call. So I think I would be doing my clients a disservice if I tried to expand and do that to them.
Yeah, that's very fair. That's very fair. So what does a typical day look like for you then as the owner, the operator, the bookkeeper, the social media manager, a mom and a wife, all of these things? What does your typical day look like for you?
My days are pretty hectic. My girls are super busy. They both ride and they're in gymnastics and they're in soccer and they're in softball and all the things. So I'm usually wide awake by 6:30, get my kids on the bus. My kids get on the bus at 7:40 and I'm in the barn by 8 o'clock for sure at the latest. And then I'll be in the barn usually from 8 to 4, sometimes earlier, just depending on what's going on in their life. They get off the bus at 3:45, so I usually try to be done on my work by then, and then it's off to take them to all their different activities. And then once I get them into bed in the evening, that's usually when I'll sit down and handle all my like callbacks and my invoicing and answering emails and all that kind of thing, just to keep everything afloat.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it probably also depends on who's in the barn of the different services that you're providing for these horses. Is it pretty typical day to day that they're usually doing the same routine, or do you switch up the routine for these horses?
No, they're pretty much same routine every day. So I'll go out as soon as my kids get on the bus. I'll go out and I'll feed everybody and get everybody their grain. And then I'll start bringing horses in to treadmill them. If it's really cold, like when we were -40 for those 3 weeks, those weeks are super daunting because everybody has to stay in the barn till they're fully dry. So it gets a little squishy in there when you've got 10 horses or 12 horses in there drying, just waiting to go back outside. So that drags my day out definitely a lot more. But usually they'll come in, I'll treadmill them depending what package they're getting. If they're getting the treadmill, solariums, Equivibe, and Salt Spa, they'll be in there. And then by the time they dry, it takes about 2 hours to dry. And then once they're dry, they'll go back outside. So it's pretty typical. And then the outside services, depending on, let's say they're booked in to see the horses that are staying with me are booked in to see the vet that day. Then I just make sure that I've worked them through my services before the vet gets here. And then the vet will see them and then they'll go outside as well. So we just kind of tie in those outside services after they're supposed to have done everything with us.
Once they've got their spa treatments for the day.
Yeah.
Is there any other treatments or systems that you're looking at adding to your business? Anything cool that you want to add on?
Yeah. So we're actually just in the works of trying to get a cold laser. So that would be really good. We deal with a lot of these wounds, kissing spine recoveries. So that would be really good to help heal up some of these things. So that's in the works. I'm hoping to have it very soon here, the cold laser. It comes out of the States. So we're working on that. That would be my biggest one. The other one I would love to add would be a hot walker, just for some of these horses, because when we're treadmilling them, we're kind of restricting their movement. They're doing like a strengthening exercise, but not really stretching out. So if we can put them in that hot walker and long trot them out after, would be a huge benefit for some of these horses. So that will hopefully be something we can add in the future as well.
Very cool. What advice do you have for somebody who's listening who maybe has had like a wild idea for a business that they wanted to do, but have received some of the same pushback that you got? What advice would you have for them?
Do it. Absolutely do it. Like, the sky's the limit. You can achieve anything you want to if you're willing to put in the work. You might have to put in a lot of hard hours to get there, and you might have to work for free for a while, but you can do it. If you set your mind to it and you want it bad enough, you can make anything happen.
Absolutely. Well, and You are living proof of that. And I can tell you, as a person who has also received pushback for my wild, crazy ideas that I have had, you're very right. Like, it does take a lot of hard work and it takes some perseverance. But once things start to click and they start to work, then it really kind of comes full circle.
And there's nothing better than to being able to say to people, I told you so.
Right? Exactly. Those are fun conversations to have, right? I always feel like deep down inside, like you have to prove it to yourself. And that's the only people that matter. Like, as long as you prove it to yourself. But the I told you so's feel good every once in a while.
When we sat at that Notables Gala and my mom was like, I just want to tell you how proud I am that you've done this and that you didn't listen to me. I was like, thank you.
That acknowledgement right there at that you didn't listen to me. I think that was the best part. I'm glad you mentioned the Notables. You were nominated recently for an award. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was nominated for the Notables Community Builder Award, which was a shocker to me. It was totally out of left field. It wasn't something I was expecting. I actually didn't see the email till 2 weeks before because it went to my junk and I don't check my junk very often. So I all of a sudden was in my junk and I was like, needing pictures. Like, what do you need photos for? And then I looked through the email and I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be at this thing. So then I had to call my mom and say like, Mom, like, are we going to make it to this? Can we do this? So it took some working around because this is my busy time of year for my business. So we had to kind of rework some things to get me there. But it was really cool to show up and to see how many women entrepreneurs there are that are doing super cool things. I had no idea the amount of women there is in agriculture.
Yeah, and specifically in Alberta and doing some really amazing things. So AFSC has done a great job of highlighting the amazing things that are happening in agriculture and specifically for women in agriculture. And to be nominated, absolutely well-deserved for persevering and making something your own and really helping your community and helping their animals succeed. And like you said, you're taking some animals that probably people didn't think they had a hope in hell after an accident or anything that's happened to them. So giving them really a second shot at life, it's probably very rewarding for you.
It is, absolutely.
Talk to me about your girls and what they love about mom's business.
Yeah, so both my girls, they're 7 and 9. They'll be 8 and 10 this summer. They've been riding forever. My daughter had a head injury when she was 4, so that kind of set us back a lot. She was with Children's Hospital for quite some time, and she had a pretty big brain injury, so that was challenging for us. But she's back riding now. She's jumping, which is really cool, and she wants to be a vet now. So that's her goal, is to take over the business one day. I know the one day she said to me, she's like, so Mom, when you die, do I get this? And I was like, I don't think it quite works like that, and please don't plan my death.
Oh my God, I love kids.
I was like, oh, okay, apparently it's not like when you retire. It's like when you die.
When you die. Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe double check that Mother's Day breakfast that comes up just to make sure.
Make sure it's safe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are some future goals that you have for yourself in the equine industry?
I just want to keep helping as many horses as I possibly can. I really enjoy helping the community too. So we always set up a booth at Medicine Hat Stampede at Country in the City. So that's kind of cool to go put a booth there and teach non-agricultural people kind of what we're about. Because I know that's generally the rodeo kind of gets that bad vibe from people that we don't treat our horses well. So it's kind of cool to go and see them with these horses on the treadmill and see these horses getting all these extra treatments and just opening people's eyes to how these horses are treated and cared for and how they are part of the family. So I really like that aspect of it, and just teaching. We've taught quite a few 4-H clubs about what we do. So I really like teaching the next generation kind of what they can expect, and non-agricultural people how agriculture kind of benefits the horses.
Right. Absolutely. I've shared this on the podcast before, but I grew up in the city. I grew up in Lethbridge. And when I married my husband and I came out to the farm, I was like, farmers can have like whatever animal they want. And I just thought that was so cool. And he always said to me, honey, you can have any animal you want except for a horse.
Why?
They were just they're not a horse family. They like to travel. They like to be able to go and do things and not have the animals to take care of at home. But I always love to go across the road and give my neighbor's horse a good scratch on the ear. So I love horses. They are beautiful. And I just think that they provide something so much more than just, an animal to do work on. I really, truly believe in the connection that people have with horses and equine therapy that people are able to do with them. They're a very special animal. And I think what you're doing for the horses that you get to treat is truly special. So thank you for all your hard work that you do with all of the beautiful horses.
Oh, thank you.
The last question that I love to ask everyone is, what is the most rewarding part about being a rural woman for you?
I think being able to show men that women can do it too. It's funny because my dad always said I was the third son because I could do all the same things my brothers did on the ranch. Like, I was probably more reliable than my brothers when they were little. So I kind of like that. I like being able to, anything a man can do, a girl can do better, kind of that saying.
Yes, absolutely. This is the right podcast to say that on. Hilary, for the folks who would like to connect with you after the show, where can they find you online?
Yeah, so we have www.holsomeequine.ca. We have Holsom Equine on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Perfect. And I will link all of those in the show notes so people can find you and connect with you and see all of the very cool things you and the horses get to do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to the Rural Woman Podcast. The Rural Woman Podcast is more than just a podcast. We are a community. A huge thank you to the Rural Woman Podcast team, audio editor Max Hofer, and a special thanks to our Patreon executive producers, Sarah Riedner from Happiness by the Acre. To learn how you can become a Patreon executive producer or other ways to financially support the show, head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast to get the latest episodes directly on your playlist. And if you are loving the show, please be sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other platform that accepts ratings and reviews. You can connect with us on social media at The Rural Woman Podcast and with me at Wild Rose Farmer. One of the best ways you can support the show is by sharing it. Send this episode to a friend or share on your social media. Let's strengthen and amplify the voices of women in agriculture together. Until next time, my friend, keep sharing your story. This week's episode of the Rural Woman Podcast is brought to you by the patrons of the Rural Woman Podcast. This amazing group of individuals contribute financially to the Rural Woman Podcast to ensure the stories of women in agriculture hit your earbuds each and every week. Want to join them in supporting the stories of women in agriculture while getting access to extended episodes, patron-only episodes, and other great perks? Head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more about how you can become a patron through Patreon.